Hi, everybody. We are so happy to have you here for, well, and Happy New Year. I know it's obviously a little bit late in the game to say that, but this is the start to our new season of the Luke's Legacy Family Research Rounds. Now, if you are unfamiliar with this whole event, this was inspired by the memory of my son, Luke, who I had the fortunate opportunity of being his mom for almost 14 years. He passed away in 2020, but one thing that he uh, really espoused as a non-speaking young man was that he deserved a seat at every table. That was just naturally implied in his mind. And that was truly something that spoke to me when it came to the idea of talking about engaging in research, participating in research, and partnering in research. And so this is a monthly event that we host to share research knowledge in more of a plain language format that makes it more accessible. And of course, all of our recordings, while you can come and engage at a social level at the events on a monthly basis, we also do share these on our YouTube channel as well too. So you can watch the recordings for more accessible opportunity as well too. So right now, I would just like to introduce you to Marilyn Wright, who is our speaker for tonight to talk about scootering. I am very excited about this concept personally. Any opportunity for kids to go out and play and have fun and how that is connected to health is just such a lovely conversation to have. So thank you, Marilyn, for being here today. And we're very excited to hear what you have to say tonight.
Okay, well, thanks for asking me. When I think about our research and talk about the people I've done this with, people say this is sort of a favorite study because it was so fun. So as you see, we're saying scootering is more than fun. So this is, for tonight, I've changed, going to make it into a bit of a clinical research story. And I'm a physiotherapist by background. I work at the McMaster Children's Hospital. I'm just very part-time now, but I'm also working with CanChild, where I'm a clinical consultant working on various projects there. So next. So if you ever want to put all your research just on one page, you can show your poster. And this is the poster that's been to many conferences. It's been sort of interesting because it's even been to Europe. And I find one thing when you travel, you see no matter where you are in the world, there's kids scootering. So it's a poster that can be viewed anywhere and probably has some context for people to watch it. However, to sort of get a whole idea without reading the small print on the poster, when we did publish this paper in Pediatric Physical Therapy, we were asked if we would make a video abstract of it so they could show some action footage with it. And so we'll see that now. And just a couple of notes of interest. One of the main scootering children in it is Kinga's son. And I'm very proud to say that my son actually put the video together for me because I don't have many skills in that area. And I was really amazed at what he could do. So here we go. It'll tell the story and then we can dissect it a bit more afterwards.
Scootering is a popular, low-cost activity for children. Its simplicity enables it to be integrated into daily life and is therefore a realistic and accessible activity for pediatric physical therapy programs. Our paper, Scootering is More Than Fun, Exploration of a Feasible Approach to Improve Function and Fitness, looks at scootering in the context of pediatric rehabilitation. Scootering is explored within the F words in childhood development. This framework was developed through CanChild Center for Disability Research. It embeds 6 key areas of child health and development: function, fitness, friends, family, fun, and future, into the World Health Organization's International Classification of Functioning Health and Disability, or ICF framework, to encourage healthcare providers to consider these perspectives in clinical service, research, and advocacy regarding children with disabilities and their families. Scootering is also studied through 3-dimensional motion analysis, which included kinematic, kinetic, EMG, and video data collection from children with cerebral palsy and typically developing children. The F words framework places fitness within the body structure and function component of the ICF. Scootering has been ranked as a moderate to vigorous physical activity and therefore contributes to physical activity guideline targets and reduces sedentary behavior to realize health benefits. Scootering encompasses other aspects of fitness, including cardiorespiratory endurance, muscular strength, power, flexibility, balance, agility, and coordination. Scootering is a functional task-oriented activity for children who are able to stand and walk. It can be integrated into individual and group therapy sessions and home programs. Family represents the environmental component of the ICF. Scootering is appealing to families. Barriers are minimal compared to many recreational activities or sports. It is a low-cost, multi-seasonal, non-scheduled activity that requires only a smooth and safe area for practice and therefore incorporate it readily into daily life. Friends and fun represent the ICF components of participation and personal factors. Scootering provides fun play opportunities with friends and siblings. Scootering can also be incorporated into therapeutic group interventions where children learn and practice new motor skills in a controlled and supportive setting with peers who have similar abilities. It can also be an ideal individual pursuit, fitting easily into a child and family schedule. It is conducive to physical distancing guidelines during pandemics. Successful participation in activities can build confidence, competence, capacity, sense of achievement, and provide social opportunities. Positive attitudes regarding healthy lifestyle practices can set the stage for future lifestyle choices. The scootering motion analyses illustrated kinematic, kinetic, and EMG patterns that can contribute to muscle flexibility, joint excursion, strength, and power and bone health. Many of the scootering characteristics were comparable to those observed in typical gait and analogous to the goals and exercises incorporated into physical therapy programs, focusing on efficient walking or running. Both dynamic and stabilizing gait strategies, such as plantar flexor, propulsion, or eccentric knee control, were identified. These had the potential to contribute to walking and running. Scooter also promotes bilateral upper extremity use. In summary, scooting was consistent with the F-Word's recommendations for rehabilitative best practice in child development and demonstrated important gait features. Scootering is a feasible, functional, and fun activity that has the potential to address many aspects of fitness, function, and gait, meet the needs of families, and provide opportunities for interaction with friends. Many of the motion characteristics of scootering reflected desirable exercise and gait features relevant to children or adolescents with physical challenges. It is a physical therapy intervention that can be integrated into individual or group therapy and home practice. We believe scootering has the potential to enhance the physical and mental health of children and adolescents. We encourage safe scootering. Please use protective equipment, safe environments, proper instruction, and appropriate supervision.
Okay, thank you. So I have to admit the abstract was for pediatric physical therapy, so it does have a bit of a, leans a bit towards physiotherapists, but we can discuss the whole concept of scootering a bit more broadly now. So we can go back to the slides. Okay. So Peter, you'll be very proud of me for the title on this first slide. Peter always says, what's the question? And the question in your research is very important because this sort of is the reason for doing the research. It leads to your methods, how you analyze your data, and any conclusions that you can pull out from the research. So what actually started this whole project in the first place was a very specific physiotype question. And it was, how could you improve eccentric knee and concentric ankle function in children being treated for leukemia? And that's because I was working in an oncology clinic at that time, and I was seeing this in a lot of kids. And to broaden the question a bit more, why would we worry about that? And of course, we're physios and we like stuff like that. But the why is because the kids wanted to have more efficient walking and running. And why did they want this? Because they wanted to keep up with their friends and their family in daily life. These were kids who were active and running around before their treatments, and they could really notice the difference in themselves after. They found they just weren't doing the things they were able to do before that. And another reason they were finding they just weren't stable in their walking and going up and down stairs. So another reason for looking at this very specific question is for accessibility. A lot of places require stairs to get in and out, safety aspects, and also just their overall confidence in going to school, being mobile in their community. So one thing we used a lot in therapy at the Children's Treatment Center where I work was scootering. And we thought, you know, this looks like it's an activity that really focuses on these very specific questions. So how could we answer this question using scootering was one thing. And with the children and family think this is important enough to participate was another thing. And then third question is, can we do this? Because we did not have any funding for this at all whatsoever. So we had to be able to fit it into our day-to-day clinic work and our spare time. But it was something that people were committed to. And so we can go to the next slide. So how did we do it? So we're lucky where I work that we actually have a full 3D instrumented gait analysis clinic. And we were able to get quantitative data from children who were asked if they would like to scooter following their gait analysis. They were coming to clinic any ways for this. Their parents were already paying for their parking. And after doing the gait assessment, they were quite keen to scooter, and we actually had 100% participation from anyone we asked. My dog's trying to get in, just a minute. Okay. And this was giving us very specific quantitative data, but we're also interested in more qualitative data, and we collected that just from clinical scenarios for kids coming in for treatment and doing their treatments, wanting to do scootering, and also from a scootering group that we held that had a lot of kids scootering at one time. So we were able to get data, and then we compiled and analyzed the data. So how did we do this to make it into a study so we could publish it? Well, we got ethics approval to do a retrospective data analysis. So this got around the potential barrier from a research ethics board. And we also got some help from some McMaster students to do some of the data analysis and crunching and stuff like that. So everyone sort of pulled together to do that. And then how did we do the knowledge translation? First of all, we just started locally because the therapist and kids had helped us with the study. We sort of shared it amongst ourselves at just meetings and with the families who had come, showing some of the stuff. And then we branched out to conferences. And we ended up taking the information to quite a few conferences. And then we looked into publishing it. And we did publish the paper that we talked about. And admittedly, with non-funded research, it took a pandemic with lots of time sitting around at home with not much to do to get time to actually write up the paper. And then from that, we were invited to make the video abstract. And one kind of story I like about knowledge translation that came from this paper is I got an email communication from a physiotherapist in the States, and he had read my paper, and then he had presented it at his physiotherapy meeting at his facility, and they decided that they too wanted to have a scootering group. So he was emailing me to get some more information about sort of the logistics of doing this. So that was kind of exciting because you actually saw your work that started from one small intrinsic question, really people approaching you and fitting the practice into their situations as well. And then of course, tonight I'm presenting at Luke's Legacy, which is really exciting. Okay, go to the next one. So research is never done by oneself. You have to have a team helping you with your research. So that was the title of the paper, Scootering for Children and Youth is More Than Fun, Exploration of a Feasible Approach to Improve Fitness or Function and Fitness. So it got around to being published in 2021. And my co-authors were Donna Touche. She's a kinesiologist who works in the motion lab with me and was very important for helping to pull a lot of the data together. And Jan Willem Gorder, who's a pediatric physiatrist, has always been interested in our research and in our motion lab. And he was more than happy to give some input into the publication and help us along the way. Jeffrey Bentley is my son, who is the video editor. McMaster Children's Hospital was helpful. You always need support from where you work to be able to do research. And so, of course, they house the motion lab that allowed us to collect the data. And we're really keen on helping us establish some of our group activities, always very supportive in doing things that might be appealing to children and families. As I said before, McMaster University was useful because we had a group of students do their research project with us. Those are their names. And I think this is important because by bringing students into your research, you get them interested in certain areas and you're sort of building capacity for your profession in the future. And then, of course, the many children who have participated in the research. And this is something I've discussed with Kinga before. I think it's important for children to realize that they can contribute by being in research studies, both if they're your patients and they're asked to be in studies, because we wouldn't be able to do research unless people agreed to be the participants. And in the pediatrics, if their parents aren't keen on helping you out with your research as well. And with this study, and I know being a physiotherapist, my kids have been asked to be controls in a lot of studies. And that's important too, because you need these kids. And they may not be clinically involved in your studies, but I find they're really quite happy to help out and sort of develop a sense that this is something they're doing to help other people. So we'd like to thank all the kids and families who participated in the scootering. And they really learned that this is something that can help other kids. Okay, next slide. So how to pull all this information together. And we found it really fit into nicely was the F words for child development. And I'm guessing and hoping that a lot of you know about the F words for child development, but I'll just briefly go over it. And if you want to know more about it, or if you don't want to know, or if you don't know about it and want to learn more, there's a lot of information on the CanChild website about the F words. So what it did was take the International Classification for Functioning framework, which would be body structure and function. Those are the little blue words at the top of this figure, which looks at the different parts of your body and how they work. Activities, which is doing things. Participation is taking the things you can do and fitting them into your regular life, how you participate with others. Environmental factors, that looks at intrinsic factors that can impact what and how you do things, and personal factors that are part of you as a person. And the words that were fit into this framework by Peter Rosenbaum and Jan Willem Gorder were fitness, functioning, friends, family, and fun. And they added a future one at the bottom, you can see, or they added another one, future, to make it actually 6 F words. Okay, and we'll go through them separately to talk a little bit more about them as well. So next slide. So the first one is fitness. And I like mixed methods research because I always feel there's something for everyone. There's stuff for people who like numbers, but there's also stuff for people who like words and the more things that may be coming from the heart of the children who are participating in this. So one quote we had was, I became more flexible, stronger, and had better balance. And this almost sounds like it was rehearsed or prompted by some physiotherapist, but it wasn't. It was from a questionnaire we had children fill out after they had joined us in a scootering group. And we looked in the study at fitness very broadly. If you first read the F words or you think about fitness, you might just think about participation in physical activity, but fitness really involves a lot of things: strength, flexibility, coordination, balance, endurance, and also mental health. And we're becoming more and more aware of how mental health is part of our overall health and a very important part of fitness. And we're building this more and more into our F words. And scootering fit all of these. It works on muscle flexibility, coordination, even coordination, the upper extremities, because you need two hands for scootering. So it's a bilateral activity. And as was alluded to in the video, there's actually people who have done a lot of studies with scootering to show that the cardiovascular and aerobic output of scootering is such that it can help children to meet their requirements for physical activity. And then that little picture of the stick figure of the person scootering, that was something our students made for us to help analyze the particular aspects of fitness we were looking at for our study. And next. So this shows, once again, very physio-oriented, but some of the information we were able to get out of our motion analysis that really showed in quite a bit of detail what scootering can actually do. So if you look at the little skeleton figure there, the little arrow coming out of the foot, that looks at how much force the muscles in purple are actually exerting. So you can measure that. You can measure the angles of the joints as they bend, looks at flexibility of muscles and joints. And on the right, that's a EMG tracing. So we actually put wireless EMG sensors on the muscles we're interested in. And it shows us as the child goes through the scooter cycle, the little stick figure you saw in the previous slide, when the muscles are firing. So those squiggles tell us that the right rectus femoris muscle was firing during the second half of the scooter phase. Once again, very exciting for physiotherapists. Okay, next. I put this slide in. It looks at the coordination when muscles are firing and how children are coordinating them. And the little circles I put around certain parts of the graphs are actually the lines that answer those very intrinsic questions I ask at the very beginning. So the purplish circles show that, yes, in fact, the quadriceps muscles are working eccentrically. And the blue circles show that, yes, in fact, that the plantar flexors were providing push-off or propulsion in the push phase of scootering. And these are both things that are very important to having a nice, smooth, and efficient gait pattern. So if you can find an easy way or a fun way to practice these things, as well as becoming better at scootering, they, in theory, can improve your walking. And there's two graphs for each of these. We got so that we were comparing the graphs of our, we'll call them typical children who came in, and compared them to the graphs of children who had cerebral palsy. And you can see the excursion of the lines and the circles are a bit different. And what this is interesting is because it shows the children were able to have these coordination strategies. They were able to do the motion, but they just weren't quite as strong or doing it as much. And what this shows is that if the children have the capacity to do something, then it's an area of treatment that they can work on, and there should be room for them to improve in these areas. So that's how ultimately it can work into some more of the specific physio goals. Okay, next. Functioning, the next F word. So functioning is how you do things. And what we think a lot when we talk about the F words, as long as you're doing it, that's good. Sometimes kids do things a bit more differently. And the quote we have for this was from a mother who brought her child in and was talking about scootering. And they were talking about scootering, so their therapist ran down and got me because they knew I was excited about scootering. And what this mother said, she was so glad for Scootering because it was a way that he could keep up with the other kids in the neighborhood. If he was doing other things, he wasn't always maybe able to run as fast or jump or do other things. But when he was on his scooter, he was like every other kid. He could keep up with them. And she was very happy for herself, but also for him. As far as function, most kids who can walk can scooter with some practice. And if the children don't have a lot of good balance, or sometimes even some of the gross motor functioning classification level kids in a 3, they can even scooter because they can get a platform scooter, such as the one in the picture there. So once again, they might scooter a bit differently because you've changed their environment with a piece of equipment, but they're able to do things with the other kids. Okay, next. Friends, the next F word. And these were quotes from the group that we had, where a group of kids who had mild coordination problems or were highly functional children with cerebral palsy, kids who could walk and get around, but they just couldn't quite keep up with some of the skills that other kids could do. So when they came this, they said, oh my gosh, lots of kids scooter. And it's true, if you watch in the neighborhoods, there are a lot of kids out on scooters. It's quite popular. So it's a good thing to do with your friends. And they said, I learned to scooter and made some new friends. And a quote that we liked are, there are other friends like me. So that's one good thing about group therapy. I mean, obviously you want kids out playing in their neighborhoods with the kids who live down the street, but sometimes there's a lot of benefit to getting a lot of kids who are the same to come together. So they're doing things with kids who are like them, and they realize that they're not alone out there. Okay, next. Family. So one family came in and told us this nice story that they were having trouble finding things that they could do together as the family. And so this family made it a routine that every evening after supper, that the dad and his daughter would go to the mailbox to get the mail. And generally she would have trouble keeping up with her father for that activity, but they found that if she was on her scooter and he was walking, that they got to the mailbox and back, and it was a nice thing for them to do together. They both got some exercise. The father in that picture is actually running. He's maybe getting a bit more exercise than the dad who walked to the mailbox. But it became part of their routine and a very important part of their day. They're probably able to chat while they're doing it and have some nice bonding. The other thing about scootering is we talk a lot these days about social determinants of health. And sometimes a lot of activities kids can participate in are costly. And one nice thing about scootering, okay, I was just reading the, the chat. You know, you can sometimes get a scooter at a garage sale for $5. And in our neighborhood, we have a Buy Nothing Facebook group, and people post things that their kids have grown out of or moved on. And I often see scooters and I'm thinking, isn't that great? There's some family getting a scooter who maybe doesn't have a lot of money to buy expensive bikes or take their kids to expensive sports, and they're out there doing things with their kids. Another nice thing about scooters is that they're portable. You can fold them up and you can throw them in the car. So if you're going on a trip, you can take it. So if you're going on walks, your kids can keep up with you. You can take it to the mall. We've actually taken our scooters on trips with our kids to give them something to do when you stop for a break after they've been sitting in the car for a long time. You get them out, and as long as you're in a safe spot, they can scooter around and burn off some energy. It's multi-seasonal. You probably wouldn't be out scootering on our sidewalks today, but there's no reason in the winter you can't scooter inside. Take the scooter to the mall, just make sure they don't run over the other shoppers. Another thing is it's a non-schedule sport and activity. Families are busy, and if so, they've signed up to go to basketball every Tuesday night at 7. They have to work that into their schedule, and fit things around it. This you can do anytime in a lot of different places. And it's also things people have told us that they can do with their siblings. That's an activity all the kids in the family can do. So a lot of things they sometimes can't do with their siblings. And or another thing is it is something you can do by yourself. You don't necessarily need a friend or a group of people to do it like you would need to play a sport that was an organized game. So it basically just, families tell us it fits into a lot of different things. Okay, next. Fun, of course, scootering is fun. And with our group, we had a sort of a child family Likert scale. And they tick off, you know, how much fun they found in activity. And it was generally ranked as absolutely loved it. And there was one little boy, when he came in to the first time of the group, he was scared of the scooter. He goes, I hate scootering. And so the first week we worked on, he stood beside the scooter, and the next one he sort of put his hands and one foot on it, and then he saw the other kids doing it. And by the time he finished the group, he was, scootering was his favorite thing. He was fully converted. We find in therapy, it's often an activity of choice. Sometimes if you have to do something not quite as exciting as scootering, that this can be a reward at the end. And one interesting thing, we often have groups and sort of through the group attendance peters off. But for this group, we had high attendance right through all of the sessions. Kids would come regularly, they wanted to come. And that was great. And so what we did in that group is the kids kept track of, well, going around the loop, we would count so they could see how far they got. And then they were supposed to keep track of how far they went during the week. And our goal was to see if, as a group, it was a team activity, they could scooter the distance from Hamilton to Toronto. And we may have, or they may have fudged the numbers a bit, but basically they achieved this goal as a group. It was a team effort. And the other thing that was included in this group is that it was the other activity with it. Actually, there were 3 activities. The other activity was going on our climbing wall. And so they also kept track of how much vertical they covered each time. And the goal for that was to see if they, as a group, could climb as high as the CN Tower. So that's why we're going from our Children's Center in Hamilton to the CN Tower in Toronto. And some kids got into this more than others, people who like maps or numbers and stuff like that, but it was kind of fun to do it as a group. Oh, and I'll just mention the third activity was magic. So they would rotate amongst activities so everyone could fit in. And magic was really fun too. It was a bit of a rest. Did they climb that distance in the end? I'm going to say yes. We like to believe they did. Okay. And next. Future. So future in the F words is that you should always be thinking about where the kids are going, where they've come from, but where they're going in the future. And with their programs, really thinking about what can you do now that's going to give them a healthier and happier future. And there has been some research that show that positive attitudes in childhood as far as physical activity have long-term follow when they track into physical activity levels in adults, and that they can have long-term health benefits for health and well-being. And we, in our therapy, we always like to talk about a lifespan approach. Okay, so there's Grandpa out scootering with his grandchildren. Okay, next. So Kinga asked if there were other activities other than scootering to chat about, and yes, there are. The other activity that we've been looking into in our motion lab is running. Of course, running's easy to do. You can do it anywhere. And what we're seeing, so there's 2 graphs there, and the one on the left with the 5 at the top, that shows the ankle power. So once again, the push off for walking for a child with cerebral palsy. And you can see the black line is where most kids would be, and they're below. But we found when the kids run, so that's the graph on the right, And you can see they're getting a much higher curve there. But also if you look at the axis, no one needs to win, says Peter, that's true. You can see the axis is 10. So that child is actually, if they run and really put a lot of effort into something, they can get a lot of power out of their muscles. So once again, it shows you that the child has the capacity to generate that power. So it's maybe something you can work into your exercises or treatments or activities, so they become more efficient with their walking and able to keep up with other kids better. Okay, next. Just some other activities that have had some research done and to see if they do have specific health benefits as well as overall participation and mental health benefits. So once again, you can adapt things. So the picture on the right at the top is frame running. This is quite popular in some countries in Europe, and there's some of it going on in Canada. The picture below just shows just an everyday riding your trike at home with your friends can have a lot of health benefits as well. Once again, functional, you can move from point A to B and you can have fun with your family and friends. The picture in the middle is horseback riding, and that's great. It's been studied to show that there are some health benefits. But once again, pointing out that not every kid is able to get out to the stable to participate in a horseback riding program. So finding things that all kids can fit into their daily life is really important. And then the other picture shows some wheelchair sports, which are great. Once again, Peter was mentioning the parasport activities that are available to people and how they really provide a lot of opportunities for exercise and fun and sport, but also a good chance to meet people who have similar needs to yourself. There's recently been some study for different gross motor groups coming out of Toronto and whether they translate into functional gains and participation gains. Swimming is a great one. Anyone can go to or be in the water doing exercises. And sledge hockey is another one that children who use wheelchairs can participate on the ice, get out there on the rink and do things. Okay, and we have national sledge hockey teams. I have a friend who was the physician for the sledge hockey team, and they're really a great group of people who have a lot of fun and participate in the Paralympics. Okay, next. So just to wrap it up, what are the benefits of scootering? And we haven't done an intervention study. We're hoping maybe someone else would do that someday. So first of all, what is the goal? Well, we can see the goal is a lot of things. It can be fitness, function, friendships, family, fun, and future. If you're taking an activity and working it into an exercise or a treatment program or whatever you want to call it, we talk about having just the right challenge. You don't want it to be something so simple that they're not getting any fitness benefits out of it. Of course, you're still getting the functional and friendships and fun things. But if you're, if you actually are interested in improving muscle function or bone density, you need just the right challenge. It has to be vigorous enough that it's actually causing change in those body structures, but not so hard that the child's not going to do it. Okay. And finally, it's the path, not the destination. So that's what we try to think about is, you know, your destination is your therapy goal, but let's think of a good way to do it. And, you know, a lot of families come in and they want a specific exercise. You know, grandma's told them that their child needs to be doing exercises, so many knee bends or stretches and stuff like that. And not that those activities aren't necessarily bad or anything, but often you can find an easier way to do it that you're really going to get more adherence and kids doing it over the long run. So that's what we're looking for when we're looking at scootering. Okay, and that was my last slide. The next one just says, does anyone have any questions?